Hi, everyone. I think it's 4:01, so we're going to get started. I am Amber Russell from EBSCO, and today we're going to talk about navigating digital accessibility, multiple perspectives on integrating ADA Title II into existing practices. Erica, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Erica Barnett, and I'm the Acquisitions Librarian from Western Carolina University.
I'm Karen Menti. I am the Outreach Librarian for University of Arizona Global Campus.
Hi, everyone. Danielle Tice from Johnson County Community College. I'm the Collection Development Librarian.
Thanks. Code of conduct, I think everybody's seen this quite a few times today, so I'm going to skip through that. And since we're talking about Title II updates to the ADA, I just wanted to provide a high level on what that is. If you're here, you probably are relatively familiar with this, but the scope of this is an update to existing Title II ruling, but now incorporates websites, mobile apps, digital documents, online platforms, basically anything web or mobile for public entities. And it requires conformance with WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 at level AA. And this goes into effect for larger populations this April. Sorry, not this April, this coming April, 2026. And then for smaller entities in 2027. I'll pass it over to Eric.
Okay, just to get a kind of a feel for who's in the room and how people are feeling, I have a couple questions, and we'll just do raise of hands. I'm not going to get technical. So we're going to talk about your feelings towards Title II. So thumbs up if you're feeling really positive about it, thumbs down if you're not feeling great about it, and then you can kind of do so-so if you're kind of in the middle. So if you would just go ahead and show me, okay? All right, we got some mixed things, and then we also have a question on the app to talk about how people are feeling also, and people were kind of ranging between struggling a little bit, somewhere in the middle, and then people are have some bumps along the road and they're getting there. So again, mixed results. And then same thing, thumbs up, thumbs down in the middle about your support level and how you're feeling in terms of being supported. If you just take a minute, thumbs up if you're feeling supported, kind of middle, okay, see some middles, see some thumbs downs, okay, see that, that's great. I think you'll learn from today that we also have varying perspectives too, and we're all in this together. So I'm Erica Barnett. As I mentioned, I'm the acquisitions librarian from Western Carolina University. And for some context is that a public university, 4-year institution. Our FTE is about 11,000, and we are primarily a residential campus, but we do have some distance ed students. So that's kind of my role. And then at the library, I'm the acquisitions librarian. I'm also now the filling in for collection development, and then have been doing e-resources. So my role has been a lot dealing with the licensing, dealing with being a financial steward, making sure our funds are being spent correctly. And so my role is a little bit across the board for everything. And so when I'm sharing my experiences today, we are making progress, as I'm sure many of us are. And so, which is fantastic. And I do think it's worth noting, for my experience, we have staffing shortages. We just went through a big system migration. So that does impact the progress we've been able to make and how quickly we've been able to make progress. So here's a timeline of my experience at an academic library. And so, of course, there was April 2024 when the final ruling was published. I didn't actually learn about it until fall of 2024, and that came from my department head who had heard about it from conference or conversation with somebody else. This is when kind of being short-staffed came into play. I had a lot of other things I was prioritizing, and so this didn't really kind of raise anything to me immediately. I didn't know what it was, didn't understand it. How does it impact libraries? And so we actually were able to get a meeting scheduled with our campus legal department. And so they were able to meet with us and meet with several of us from the library. And in that meeting, we actually found out that our campus was actually already working on this, and they were making progress, and the library just had been excluded from those conversations. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity, because in that meeting, we were able to identify 2 people who could now serve on that committee and start getting involved and working. And so that was a really beneficial time to meet. And then, of course, so you have the campus-wide committee. Then we took it upon ourselves. We love task force and committees in the library. So we developed a accessibility task force committee, especially to kind of deal with that short-staffed, rely on a lot of different people with expertise. And I just realized I'm probably talking really fast. So we were able to make a task force for the library specifically, and we did a call for volunteers for people who were really just interested in the topic, and thankfully it was a variety of people who kind of touched the different aspects of libraries that we could come together. So we're kind of like brand new in this and still kind of making progress. So we kind of started with that first step about continuing to kind of make a plan, make a good effort to make sure we're in compliance by the 2026 deadline. And with the task force, right now our primary focus is the Title II, but we do have wanting to continue the work with the physical accessibility as well. So right now we are in, we have 3 phases of a plan: the planning, assessment, which is kind of the forming the team, conducting inventory, prioritization for review. We have phase 2, which is the technical and content review, and that's like selecting our tools, developing a checklist. And then our 3rd phase will be the remediation, creating a plan, addressing third-party compliance, developing our statement, and creating an ongoing maintenance plan. And that's just kind of what we put forward now, with the understanding that's probably going to change and we're going to have to adapt to it. Even thinking about, we probably need to create a statement sooner than later. And so at least we have a starting point, and we all feel pretty good about having a direction of where to go. And then, of course, the collaboration is key. It's kind of that foundational piece. Without the collaboration with the university, we wouldn't have that support. And then the collaboration within the library, we're really able to use the expertise of the different areas with people who are working in LibGuides, special collections. I don't have all that knowledge, so having somebody who knows what to look at and look for is really helpful. And these will be on a toolkit shared later on a QR code, but these are specifically what we use in our library as an academic library. And then we created a spreadsheet to kind of track the inventory and prioritize. We did it throughout the phases as well of how we're going to address it. Again, this will probably change as we actually get into the work, but just the fact that everybody can use it, access it, and it kind of gives us a sense of where we need to go from there is just really a good starting point. So yeah, I'll hand it off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Menti, and I'm the outreach librarian at University of Arizona Global Campus. We are a fully online accredited university. We are associated with the University of Arizona, but we are the totally online institution. And we have a standardized asynchronous curriculum. Our students are primarily adult learners, non-traditional students, working professionals, things like that. We have accelerated 5 to 6 week courses. And in my role, I support the business and tech courses and collaborate closely with faculty, instructional designers, and we have accessibility specialists on staff as well. Accessibility is not a one-person job, as we all know. It's a team effort. And at UAGC, because we're fully online, I feel like, we have sort of an advantage there. We have the standardized curriculum with a very robust course development process. And so our librarians are deeply embedded in the process, which you'll see in a moment, to ensure that all learners can access and engage with our content. So here is our timeline, our plan for April 2026. This is kind of this 5-part plan. We were already prioritizing accessibility. I think we really made it one of our core goals in 2023. That's when we hired one accessibility specialist. And since then, we've hired 3 new digital accessibility specialists. We are all, as a team, improving our own skills through free trainings and things like that. We see OER as a big opportunity to create accessible content ourselves. So we've been really upskilling in OER creation as well. Third, we're strengthening communication with our vendors and our faculty and other stakeholders. We've worked closely with our vendors to get signed accessibility agreements from them. And I should preface this with, we have a relatively small collection compared to other, like research, tier 1 research institutions. So we've been able to do a lot of work with our vendors pretty quickly and easily. And then we've done a lot of work with faculty as well to help them understand the needs for these changes. Fourth, we're integrating accessibility into our course development workflow, which you'll see in just a moment. We're prioritizing resources that are either born accessible or that we can easily be made accessible in-house. We're ensuring now that all the courses that we develop moving forward are fully accessible. And then finally, we have a large-scale accessibility audit coming. This is a big lift. We haven't started yet, but next month is our plan. We're just kind of laying the groundwork now. So I wanted to show you here, this is our course development process. I wanted to dive in a little bit more so you can see how we've really baked accessibility in now. It's very iterative. It's not an afterthought. You can get a sense from the visual on the right here of what I call the resource selection merry-go-round. It's almost like more of a tilt-a-whirl these days. But during the course development process, faculty start by reaching out to the library with their course learning objectives or their weekly learning objectives. We take a look and make recommendations for them for textbooks, journals, videos, OER, you name it. We have some tools that we use to do sort of a cursory accessibility review, things like the Adobe built-in tools or the Axe dev tool from DeQ. They have a free tool that you can use for any web pages, HTML, they'll give it a review. And if we think that it's going to pass or that you can tweak just a few things to make things accessible, we send it to our accessibility experts. They review, they get back to us, and they let us know if we need to then either reach out to our vendors for remediation, or if we can remediate it in-house, we do that. If not, we start from scratch and we take another look. So obviously efficiency with this process is a big challenge. Balancing costs and benefits, and just getting faculty buy-in, surprisingly, has been a big challenge. I guess, we've had a big shift at my institution. Being fully online, we years ago were pushing like really innovative, visually engaging content in courses. But of course now we can recognize that even if something looks really visually appealing, flashy, dynamic tutorials, things like that, they did not meet accessibility requirements. And so, if only some learners can interact with the learning material, it's actually disengaging a lot of learners. So now we know that just very basic, like a tagged PDF or text on a page is really optimal. So that has given some faculty a difficult pill to swallow. So to support this whole process, we've created resources. They're linked here. They're also available in the accessibility toolkit. And I can't stress enough how much we use our trackers, like our remediation request trackers, to keep track of everything we've submitted to vendors for remediation, and also our due diligence tracker. I feel like that will be especially important after April 2026 to show like, hey, we've done our part to try and make things accessible, but obviously it's going to take some time. So we're starting our accessibility audit. We have 638 courses. We're prioritizing the biggest impact courses. That's 159 courses we're hoping to have done by April 2026. We use JIRA It's a project management tracking system that it's an Atlassian product. So our accessibility specialists can easily flag resources and then tag us on it. The librarians can go in and try to find replacements for them. That's sort of our workflow so far, but I'll let you know how it works out. And then I can't stress enough, this is really a team effort. So I just got some feedback from my other colleagues who couldn't be here today. And, Stacy, she's our main lead accessibility specialist. She really emphasizes the need, if you're looking to hire someone, make sure it's a certified tester who understands both the law and how adaptive technologies work. My manager, Kira, she really highlights the value of making it a team partnership. And we can't say enough good things about EBSCO and all the work that we've done with EBSCO. They were sort of, they were the first vendor that we could really have an open conversation with about accessibility and just come up with plans together. And then Anna, again, says hire specialists. Allison is hopeful that the deadline will push other content creators to improve accessibility. And, we all, like Elena, feel the pressure, but I think we're on the right path. And we're all just committed to making learning accessible for everyone. Thank you. I'm handing it over now to Danielle.
Hi, everyone. Danielle Tice from Johnson County Community College. We are located in Overland Park, Kansas, and we are a public 2-year community college. Our FTE is under 10,000, but we have a head count of about 23,000. So we feel rather large, even though our FTE may be a little smaller. I am the collection development librarian at our library, Billington Library. I've been here just a year and a half, and so we'll talk from my experience in that time period. I will briefly go back and talk about what others have done, and this is college-wide. So all the way back to 2015, we had an accessibility team formed on campus with representatives across the campus, not the library, but we came later, but it was something created in 2015. In 2020, we had an external accessibility audit completed solely on online tools and resources with the college. It did have recommendations. One of those recommendations was to hire a digital accessibility coordinator, and we were incredibly fortunate to be able to do that in 2022. And this person helped create the JCCC resource evaluation team. And on the right side, this is where I came in. So in 2024, the accessibility review team updated the ADA checklist that we use internally to evaluate vendors. And with the increased information, we wanted to make sure we were up to date. And then 2025, we finally have a place at the table, the library. We do participate in the review process. I sit on our college-wide review team, where not only we review library materials, but we review everything. So, we did Microsoft Copilot the other day and Gemini, so anything that the college is using, we are evaluating through this process. To date, I'll go back to the second thing, but to date, we have actually evaluated 54 databases or vendor platforms and 11 OER platforms as well. And we were so fortunate about 4 months ago to be able to hire a part-time librarian who helps with me to do the reviews, and specifically for the library. So we kind of think of our accessibility resources for the library in 3 buckets. The first bucket would be owned or subscription materials. So those would be things that we annually would be renewing, things we would purchase outright, and so forth. So we use our college-wide review committee process to evaluate those. Those do go in front of our team, and individuals from across the college look at our review documents and kind of do the rubber stamp. Yes, you can move forward with renewing that resource, purchasing that resource. And so that is what we do with the owned or subscribed to materials. In terms of OER platforms or identified OER resources, we do an internal library resource review. We use the same checklist that we do for the college-wide review, but we just look at OER materials internally. And then we also receive resources from the state library as well as our Board of Regents. And we don't look at those college-wide. We do look at those internally at the library. We do a review internally. All of our review checklists and any documentation that we create will go to Access Services. Will sit there in case it's needed. But just wanted to share the first bucket is where it goes across the college. So I've mentioned a little bit about our review. I have provided a screenshot of our review checklist. It is around 5 pages. It walks through every component of WCAG 2.1 AA and provides opportunity for us to put information about deficiencies or if the vendor or platform meets that particular section. We have, of course, there are other things that we could be evaluating for 2.2 or other things, but we have left those out because right now we are solely focused on WCAG 2.1 AA. These are the different sections, and how this kind of works is my staff member, the librarian, would look at any documentation received from the vendor. We do request from the vendor the most updated VPAT and HECVAT, and we use those materials to actually fill out this checklist. We are not doing a technology review ourselves. We are hedging our bets that the vendor is telling the truth and telling us if they have deficiencies in certain areas or if they are meeting, partially supporting or supporting that section. We are taking them at their word. And so we are using what the vendor put on the VPAT to actually fill out this entire checklist. So then we can we have the VPAT, we have the checklist. If we identify that there is a deficiency where they said it was supporting, we have the documentation to show there's a discrepancy here in what you're sharing. We have an impact matrix determination, and that is the next slide, and I'll jump to that in a second. But that tells us what is the level of urgency for this resource to be evaluated. What is the impact that it will have on campus? Is it going to be evaluated because it's the entire campus is going to be having access, like New York Times or additional resources like that? Or is it course specific? So is it something for our dental hygiene program and only dental hygiene students would have access to it? And it really walks through from low kind of urgency up to critical. And we're using that matrix to actually talk with the vendor of you need to get your act together because our entire campus is using this resource on a daily basis. So that's kind of how we use that. And we document what materials we use to make this evaluation, additional notes, and then the final determination and recommendation, that is where we present this checklist to our college-wide committee, and we say, based on our findings, we suggest that yes, we should move forward. There is a roadmap. We have provided the roadmap from the vendor. We will check back next year and see if they did what they said they were going to do. And we actually note that in our checklist document. The vendor said they will be doing X by this date. When we renew this again next September, check and see if that happened. Here's a screenshot of our impact matrix. It's a little hard to see. I have provided templates of all of these materials. So you can go and download the checklist, you can download the impact matrix, and then other things that I'm going to talk about shortly. But you can see here on the left-hand side, the different categories. The use of the tool is optional at the top, and it's used by a small group of faculty or staff, or 5 or fewer users, 5 or fewer classes. And so the impact matrix there would be very minimal. And so we actually don't even do a review if it's minimal. We are just saying, okay, the impact isn't worth it right now. If we need to do it down the road, we will. We just have hundreds of different reviews we have to do as a college. And so we are putting things into buckets. And if we kind of move down, if we go to the far right, it's used by the public. We are a public college, and we do have community members who can come in and use our materials, and visitors and all kinds of other individuals as well. And we want to make sure that if anything is used by the public, that we are, of course, evaluating it. We have the documentation prepared for that. If you kind of work your way down, we have critical resources, and that is when the use of the tool or resource is, by different multiple departments, used by all students, used by entire campus, but then the use of the tool or resource is required for the course. So if it's optional, we're kind of putting those in a different bucket. If it is required for the course, we're of course moving it down the impact matrix. So as we have done our evaluations, there have been materials that do not meet WCAG 2.1 AA. And because of that, what we're doing is we have created what we call an EAP, Equally Effective Alternative Access Plan. And it walks through the accessibility barrier based on WCAG 2.1 AA, what the vendor has said that they have available if there's an alternative solution that the vendor is providing, but then we also provide an alternative solution if none is provided. And so we are offering different things depending on the resource of what we will do internally for that resource if a student or a patron needs access. And I did just provide a link to our ADA page, which lists some of the things that we've been doing. We also have an ADA services statement, which notes that students, faculty, and staff who need accommodations based on resources that don't meet their needs, they can come to us, make an appointment, and we will help them do whatever is needed.
Hello, I am the vendor. I was going to start with a high level on EBSCO. I joined EBSCO in 2022. I had no idea what EBSCO stood for. I thought everybody else might want to know. It's Elton B. Stevens, EBS company. Yeah, fun, right? Established in 1944. So EBSCO Information Services, which is the subsidiary that I work for, that's the largest subsidiary under EBSCO Industries. So we have 130,000 organizations around the world use EBSCO products, and very important, 90,000 publications and over 450 databases. That's an important number. We'll come back to that. Quick high level on EBSCO's accessibility journey. They have been doing accessibility for a very long time. When I joined EBSCO, having used eHost in college, not connecting the dots until far too late, I learned that it goes back at least officially in 2007, although in talking to some of their longer employees, it sounds like it might have actually been earlier than that. So accessibility has been a part of the organization, top of mind for a really long time. That's very important. A lot of organizations didn't start doing accessibility or considering it until a couple years ago. So having joined in 2022, I was thrilled to learn that I no longer had to spend my days explaining what accessibility is. Everybody already knew. It's wonderful. We can move on to the work. So they established an official team in 2007. 2014, that was more of a dispersed team. So, different people kind of doing things, but not a core team. 2014, they established the core team. Big deal. 2022, I'm kind of skipping over some things here. That's when I joined. That's really when we started big work on the European Accessibility Act. So that actually came out in 2019, but it didn't really ramp up until about 2022. That's when it really started to be concrete as far as what it was going to require. So EBSCO, myself, my team has been working really hard on ensuring all of our platforms met the European Accessibility Act. If you don't know, it requires conformance with WCAG 2.1 AA. Why do we care? Because that's what the ADA Title II wants. So a lot of that work has already been done, which is great. And then there's additional European standards, which means we've met those as well. So we're in a really good position, but it's never done. So 2024, DOJ announces updates to Title II. We talked about that. So we continue working on that and increasing the accessibility of our products. That is ongoing work. It is never, ever done because we work on products that we are designing and adding features to constantly. So the question that I spend most of my time answering from people like you, probably, maybe I've talked to you, maybe you've emailed me, does EBSCO meet ADA Title II requirements? Yes, but there's always the but. There's always a however, because accessibility documentation, which you want to say, yes, everything meets it perfectly, no exceptions whatsoever, that doesn't exist. Complete compliance doesn't exist on any product. If you ever see an ACR, that Accessibility Conformance Report or VPAT, that says we meet everything, no exceptions, everything is perfect, that is only true if you're not doing development on that, if nobody is ever touching it again. And so your documentation is really just that snapshot in time. At this time that we did testing, this is what we can report on. And that changes. So typically I update our ACRs quarterly. They're posted on our page. I have a link to that later. You can always reach out to me if you have questions about a specific thing. Right now, we have one issue that doesn't meet WCAG 2.1. It's in development. I'm hoping it'll be done in December. You can track them on our roadmap. So I try to keep it as clear as possible to ensure that you're getting the information that you need. But it's always changing. I had librarians reaching out to me earlier in January asking for documentation. They wanted ACRs, and I'm happy to give those to you, but it's gonna be very different than the ACR that you're gonna get in January of 2026. And so that's just really important to keep in mind that the documentation is only as accurate as the testing was carried out. And so we do testing on our products by third party every 3 years or after a large release. We are doing constant testing internally. It is embedded into our process. I have somebody on my team who's a full-time screen reader user, so he is always going through, finding issues, reporting on those issues, and resolving those. And there are issues, and then we fix them. And that's just the nature of software development. So here's what we do to actually make sure that it is embedded in our process. EBSCO targets WCAG 2.2. So 2.2 of WCAG came out in November of 2023, 6 additional criteria in level A and AA. And so we wanted to get to that next level. So I'm not gonna read all of these bullets, but high level, it's built into our process. All teams are trained on accessibility. Developers have it as part of their definition of done. We do sign off. We do lots and lots of internal testing. We'll be having a third-party audit. We use DQ in January on our new UI. And so we'll have new ACRs after that to ensure that everything is in good shape for the April deadline. So when I'm talking about accessibility, our ACRs, all of that, it is for our platforms. So going back to 450 databases and 90,000 pieces of content, we can't provide that information. We are an aggregator. And so there's so many different publishers that it would be impossible for us, again, everything is changing, for us to provide ACRs on every single piece of content. And so we do the best that we can. We're constantly working with publishers there to make sure that they're sending us accessible documents. And we're increasing our HTML daily, hourly, I'm told by the content team. And we also offer in-app, if you've been in New UI, in a viewer, there's a little accessibility icon. It's not an overlay. It allows you to request content remediation if, for some reason, that piece of content doesn't meet a user's needs. I also have a very robust list on EBSCO Connect. This QR code will take you directly to this page. All of our ACRs, or you might call them VPATs. VPAT is the template that an ACR is reported on. We have all of our statements new. These are now available via URL instead of just a downloaded document. I have a document standardizing accessibility testing that talks to you about how we do our testing and what our process is. And then we've also got a new UI accessibility navigation guide, which maybe doesn't sound very cool. Within there are, I think there's 18, there might be 20 now, screen reader user guides written by someone on my team who is a full-time screen reader user. So each of those tell you how to get through maybe a certain process or a workflow within new UI if you're using a screen reader. You shouldn't need them, and you don't, but it is helpful to new screen reader users. How am I doing on time? Great. So we've also got accessible content remediation requests. If you are requesting a lot of documents, you don't have access to the viewer, you don't want to log in, you can also do it through here. That's a link. And then some information on Title II and the EAA. So if you're interested in all the work that we did in there, this is linked here. There's articles. And that is it for me. QR code for a link to the accessibility toolkit. That is a big spreadsheet. Yep. So I think everybody has put their things in there. I'll add a couple more. My QR code is a little different. And then we've got a few questions here. I don't know what time it is. Okay, sounds like we have 2 minutes. So does anybody have questions other than this? Or we can work with, what have you found to be helpful in your journey? What barriers have you run into? What are the plans if the ADA Title II is rescinded?